most visitors, the enduring images of Vermont are the scenes of its hillsides in fall. This time, when nature drapes the hills in mantles of golds and scarlet, hangs like a favorite picture in the halls of our imagination. The hillsides burst into bouquets of reds and orange, yellows and purples, colors that no decorator would combine, somehow harmonize. This brief season provides us the New England of our folklore. Quiet country lanes are cloaked in russet mantles and village greens are garlanded with gold. But the foliage is a bittersweet season. It marks the final harvest of summer and the imminent arrival of New England's fearsome winter. For all its glowing beauties, this is a time of quiet mourning for the passing of another summer's comforts. Visitors to New England are always calling innkeepers and tourist agencies to divine the exact moment of peak foliage, so they might plan their trips with maximum efficiency. And the experts are always at a loss for answers. The characteristics of each season are at the whim of a myriad of influences, all of which affect the timing and the display of peak color. Yet, understanding some of the common features can help in planning and timing the mode of a visit. The color change is a basic biological process determined by the seasonal cycle of the sun and the length of the days. All during summer's long days, the leaves produce food for the whole plant. But as summer ends and the days shorten, the trees know that it's time to prepare themselves for winter dormancy. No longer needing its chlorophyll, that little food factory that turns the leaves green, the summer colors fade. The residue of summer food production, waste sugars and proteins, are revealed as the reds and golds, yellows and purples. These residues, embedded in the dying leaves, are the tree's final harvest. This process starts shortly after midsummer as the days get slightly shorter. And by the middle of August, the first signs of the impending fall are visible. Here and there, on single branches of occasional sugar maples, you start to see the early reds blossoming. These first hints of color bring a pang of sadness. Summer is once again starting to fade away. The first true displays of fall color start early in mid-September, in the swamps and in the lowland marshes. Here, scrawny trees, their feet in the rapidly chilling water, find the cold just hard to take and head for dormancy the quickest. These brilliant bursts of swamp color provide a taste of the full extravaganza of the approaching autumn. By mid-September, the calls to the visitor services demanding the exact date of peak foliage have become a flood. The season begins. The hotels and inns fill up as the trickle of leaf peepers become a torrent. The finer country inns are turning away visitors who haven't booked their rooms many months in advance. And the country roads are swelling with lines of traffic. The North Country becomes filled with travelers, all searching for that mythical moment when the leaves are ablaze in Hollywood colors. But the experience of the color is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. Peak foliage is not a moment, but a process that lasts from the middle of September to the latter part of October. Each year brings a different show. Although the sun cycle determines the general timing of the foliage, the variations of the year determine the specifics. The colors depend on the amount of sunshine in summer and the rainfall in August. It's influenced by the previous winter's duration, the heat of the summer and the coolness of the fall, and a variety of subtler reasons. And although you might hear the locals suggest that one display is significantly better than another, for the occasional visitor, the show is always beautiful. Given these factors, a common-sense rule should dictate the timing and route of a foliage tour. Follow the foliage down, both in elevation and in compass direction. The color change starts high in the mountains, because the higher you go, the colder it gets. Winter arrives first in the New England mountaintops, and the colors peak first just below. Then, as if they were being painted downward, the autumn hues wash across the high valleys and notches. Finally, in mid-October, the colors wash downward into the lower valleys and pour out over the rolling farm country to the south. By the end of October, nature's fall show is about complete. Bare branches silhouette the sky, and it's almost time for the snows to begin. Most visitors hope to view the fall display during mild days with clear blue skies and the hills ablaze in fiery golds. But fall is a season of transition. The weather changes rapidly, even for a region famous for its unpredictable weather. Mark Twain once remarked that if you don't like the weather in New England, just wait a minute. And nowhere is that remark more apt than up in the mountains. Folks should be prepared to experience the subtle joys of mountain foliage under gray skies as well as blue. In fact, the mountains tend to make their own weather. While the low country might be clear, around the peaks the clouds and rain can settle in for days at a time. And in the high valleys, sometimes fall and winter occur simultaneously. But there are unique pleasures to be found even in the overcast. Under leaden skies, the colors possess a different quality. The local photographers love foliage in the rain because they find the hues tend to gain intensity in their images. And in those moments when the holes in the clouds pass through, the sunbeams create spotlights on the hillsides. Truth be told, the best days for fall viewing have a mixture of both sun and clouds. The play of light and shadow create a choreographed extravaganza. Fall weather brings another delight. The morning fogs. These occur when the cool night air settles in the valley and condenses into thick fog. From above, these fogs create a dreamlike landscape. It's worth rising before the sun and climbing a back road into the high country just to glimpse this beautiful effect. The people who live and work in the high country have a fascinating term for the phenomena. As opposed to being overcast, they call this undercast. And down in the valley, sunlight penetrates these shallow fogs and lights the landscape with an ethereal glow. Such diversity of weather can provide other problems as well. At best, it makes dressing for foliage touring a challenge. In fact, to adequately prepare for viewing the colors, it's best to assume that you could be in summer in the morning and winter in the afternoon. It's advisable to dress accordingly. At a distance, the foliage display presents an impressionist palette of colors dabbed on the hillside in reckless disregard for the rules of form and composition. But as you approach the forest and then pass through, the colors become more distinct. You find that each tree adds an element to the rhythms of color and shape that make the New England fall so memorable. Circling the higher peaks, mostly birch and ash trees are scattered in among the evergreens. They yellow early and then turn to brown, but their yellow specklings signal the onset of the peak color. Lower down, the beeches and the aspen mix in with birch and ash. This mixture creates a pervasive yellow glow at the middle altitudes. It's at the lower elevations on the mountain and in the river valleys between them where you find the reds and golds, purples and magenta, rainbows of color. Here, nature uses her widest palette of species to paint the landscape. This kaleidoscope of colors is part of the magic of the North Country fall. But for most people, it seems that the red trees are the main attraction. And the queen of the pageant is the sugar maple. This provides the flashiest and most popular colors of the fall display. Sugar maple leaves can be red or gold or dappled combinations of hues. They can be identified by the sharp points and smooth edges of their leaves. And a royal princess of the maple family is the red maple. Also called swamp maples, it's often seen in lowland displays in September. The red maple peaks early without the sugar maple's golden highlights, so they're not quite as showy. And yet they provide some of the earliest blooms of color in the landscape. Besides the flamboyant maples, several other redleaf species should be noted. Along the roadside reside the low-growing sumac. Its branches display even rows of long, wine-red leaves. And down amidst the lowland forest, often near lakes and swamps, reside the tupelos. These occasional trees add a muted, almost pinkish red accent to the fall. Ironically, On open ground, the dangerous poison ivy turns a wonderful crimson and becomes a sparkling highlight. Later in the fall, the northern red oak provides the final red of the season. These imposing trees displayed their subdued reds of deep burgundy mixed with brown. Their leaves are distinctively pointed, and their weighty presence adds a somber gravity to the picture. Although the red trees are spectacular, the yellow and gold species can be equally enjoyable. The birches are perhaps the most striking of the yellow-turning trees. Found in both the highlands and the valleys, they're distinguished by their yellow spade-shaped leaves and long stems. The glowing trunks of the white and paper birches complete the fall scene by providing a charming anchor to the exuberance of the canopy. Beside the birches, among the yellow-turning trees are the beeches and elms, aspen and ash and alder. Although they are not always appreciated, the beeches, ash, and elms present a mottled leaf display. First, they show a brilliant yellow and add to the general golden ambience. But their leaves turn to brown early in the season, reducing the drama. For a variety of the yellow trees, identification can be tricky based on leaf shapes. Between the beech, elm, alder, and yellow birch, the leaves are similar enough that many people tend to mix them up. For those who really want to know the difference, it's worth getting a good book on leaf identification and spending some time walking the forest. Some of the most delightful trees to view close up are the aspens. The bright yellow gyrations of the quaking aspen provide an especially fanciful counterpoint to the venerable forest. Demure at a distance, the quaking aspen seems bland, but as you approach, the round leaves dance in the slightest breeze. Among the yellow hues, the maples are also represented. Some sugar maples turn gold and yellow and provide postcard images of autumn. Whether it's sitting in the farm dooryard or beside the road, the gold sugar maples are the highlights of the October afternoon. But there's also the striped maple that has yellow leaves. Striped maples have sawtooth edges on the leaves and are a more subdued display than that of their showy cousins. As the fall progresses, other trees are revealed in the thinning forest display. The witch hazel's broad purple and yellow leaves offer a colorful accent under the forest canopy. And although it's not a tree, the tall blooms of the goldenrod flower mark the autumn meadow and field with its yellow signature. Finally, the autumn wanes. A hard rain or wind sweeps the leaves quickly from the trees. Suddenly, the forest is sparse, and winter is close at hand. The bronze leaves of the sturdy oak hang on the longest, but the fall display is gone. One by one, the species shed their leaves into the slow-flowing river of the season. The colors swirl together and slowly float away, not to be seen again until another brief Vermont summer has come and passed. While any place in Vermont can provide a beautiful scene in foliage time, some places are just more scenic than others. In Vermont, the mountains often act as much of a frame to the landscape as a focus. The Green Mountains are not rugged, masculine mountains jutting into the sky. Ancient glaciers smoothed and rounded these peaks, so they often curve softly, giving the landscape a more feminine face. Touring Vermont is much like visiting a gigantic garden, where the visual rhythms of the background elements creates a sense of proportion and focus to the foreground. Like much of life, in a foliage tour, what you see depends on where you sit. The best vantage points are not in the valleys, although most organized foliage tours tend to follow the main roads in the valleys. And this means that many tourists often miss the most memorable scenes of Vermont's fall. The state's rolling countryside creates an array of highland valleys farmed and tended, where you can discover unique views far away from the well-touristed routes. The secret of discovering the color is to allow yourself time to depart the main roads and travel into the backcountry. Check out the detailed state maps to find the back roads that will get you from one location to the next. The best roads climb up on the hillsides, along the edge of the high valleys, and through the less populated hollows. Follow these routes to the high overlooks and farmscapes that are the hallmark of Vermont. Navigating the wilderness, of course, requires some confidence. So, to provide motivation and a taste of the visual treats in store, we propose the following series of scenic foliage itineraries. Each tour involves about a day of leisurely driving with plenty of time for stopping, poking around, and general dawdling. So to heed our own advice, and to follow the colors down, it would seem that we should start the tour in the high country of the central Green Mountains. But in Vermont, foliage often peaks earliest in mid-September above the mountains, well north in the Northeast Kingdom. The Northeast Kingdom's a broad, rolling landscape in the upper corner of Vermont. It's one of the state's least touristed or populated sections, yet perhaps the most scenic. Walled to the south and west by mountains, the hilly, rolling landscape is a kingdom of sorts that tumbles down into the plains of Quebec and the upper Connecticut River Valley. It's a quiet land of cattle farms and farm folk who take great pride in caring for the land. Although the kingdom has some large towns, the memorable places are the classic rural villages like Danville, Irisburg, and Craftsbury. To discover the Northeast Kingdom, start in St. Johnsbury and go west to Danville, where there's a delightful town green. And from Danville, head northwest to Hardwick and then up to Craftsbury and Craftsbury Common. Besides its current beauties, Craftsbury Common was the location of one of the earliest major motion pictures done outside of Hollywood, Alfred Hitchcock's The Trouble with Harry. North of Craftsbury is a great region to explore the back roads and discover one of New England's idyllic treasures. Here, farmers take great pride in the land, and the old methods of farming just seem to work the best. And in Irisburg, it's the kind of place you can get a glimpse of a Norman Rockwell America. A little further up Route 5 is Newport, the largest town in the North Country. On State 5A, loop to the southeast and into the Lake District of Vermont. The most scenic of these lakes is Lake Willoughby, set like a jewel in between dramatic highland crags. From Lake Willoughby, look for the back roads that head generally south. This country makes it worthwhile to explore the farmland for the wealth of memorable viewpoints. Mostly, it's important to remember that wherever you go in the Northeast Kingdom, you will be rewarded with a beautiful trip. As the foliage season moves into the mountains and more of the North Country, it's time to start exploring other scenic areas of northern Vermont. This includes both the upper end of the Green Mountains and the northern part of Lake Champlain. This itinerary starts in the middle of the Northeast Kingdom. Find State Route 58 near Orleans and head west to begin this scenic loop. Whenever possible, take the parallel farm roads that will keep you up on the hillside and out of the valleys. To the west, past Lowell, climb up to make the first crossing of the mountains through Hazen's Notch. This is one of the state's true wilderness areas, with views of swamp hollows and miles of golden sugar bush. Take time to savor the play of light and colors in the woods at the top of the notch. On the west side of Hazen's Notch, the road drops down into Montgomery. A delightful small town, Montgomery has kept its rural charms despite its growth due to the nearby Jay Peak ski area. Up here, the conical cap of Jay Peak is a landmark always present in any panorama. It's the farthest north peak of the Greens, and its foothills are a great place to bask in the rainbow of fall colors. To the west, beyond Jay, the land flattens out into the farming country of Franklin County. Stay north along Route 105, following the Missisquoi River Valley west. Suddenly, you'll find the landscape falls away into the Champlain Valley. Lake Champlain provides Vermont with a significant waterfront. Up in the north end of the lake are a set of connected islands called the Heroes. Travel south through the island chain from Swanton. From the Heroes, the attraction is the breathtaking views back across the water onto the spine of the Green Mountains. From the islands, head down to Burlington. This is Vermont's big city, but it functions at a human pace. In fact, one of the most popular pastimes here is to amble down to the bluffs above the lake to savor the sunset over the Adirondacks. To prolong the discovery of the Champlain Valley, follow Route 7 south from Burlington to Shelburne, where the Shelburne Museum resides. This museum contains one of America's best collection of folk arts and crafts, including the Ticonderoga, last of the great steamers on Lake Champlain. From Shelburne, wander the back roads toward the mountains northeast, through the farm country inland from Essex. This quietly beautiful landscape leads up into the Mount Mansfield region. Look for the little-used scenic road north through Pleasant Valley, which runs along the western base of Mount Mansfield and up to Jeffersonville. There, you can join the traffic climbing up through the golden trees into the rugged landscape of Smuggler's Notch. This steep, curvy road then descends from the notch towards Stowe and provides one of the true automotive adventures in Vermont. Another automotive adventure awaits just down the road a piece. Rising out of the Stowe Valley is the Mount Mansfield Toll Road. This scenic drive twists up to the top of the state's tallest mountain and provides a great vantage point for viewing the whole Green Mountain chain. Next, follow Route 100 down the valley south of Stowe to the small town of Waterbury. This is another great place to get off the main road and see what delights await on the dirt lanes. From Waterbury, hop east over to the state's capital at Montpelier. one of the most pleasant small cities in New England. It's a great base for exploring central Vermont. In Vermont, the Green Mountains are the state's spine. They run in an almost continuous rampart from the north at Jay Peak, south to the Massachusetts border. But in the central part of the state, they form a sharp, continuous wall from just south of Montpelier to the valleys at Londonderry. The Green Mountains contain Vermont's most dramatic landscapes. The road down Route 100, which runs down the central valley of the mountains, is the direction that most leaf peepers travel. However, because this road stays in the valley, it contains few grand vistas. But it's a useful reference continuity from which we can wander off to the side roads and then return. Those side roads are found mostly to the west of Route 100. Here they cross the gaps, the mountain passes which cut across the spine of the Greens and provide the routes for roads between the Central Valley and the Lake Champlain Valley. The first of these routes turns off Route 100 down in Wakefield, where you can take Route 17 up through the Appalachian Gap. There are some great views up along the ski lifts at the Mad River Glen ski area. And just past the top of the gap is the most awesome vista to be found in the whole chain. The Gap Road drops from here back into the Champlain Valley. An hour's drive across the valley will allow you to discover some sights worth the visit and to savor a little more of this beautifully undulating scene. Look for the Triple Mill Falls at Virgins. And a ways further south down Route 7 is Middlebury, an old New England college town where it's just pleasant to soak up the atmosphere on the green. From Middlebury, drive east to cross back into the mountains at either the Middlebury Gap or the Lincoln Gap. The Lincoln Gap is the most challenging, with its windy old road, which offers an occasional dramatic vista. But because it's less developed and therefore less traveled than the other gaps, the attraction here is the forest and a chance to discover a little pure nature. Also, the descent out of Lincoln Gap is more pleasant without the company of the other foliage followers. Down to the bottom of the gap is Warren. The road comes into 100 again. In the winter, this is a lively ski town, but in the fall you can find images of an earlier day. Drive south a ways to Rochester and look for the old road over to Bethel. Up top, you can get a real sense of the Vermont landscape. From here, wander through a world of small towns and farm country and discover the villages. But the destination of choice is now Woodstock, the old carriage trade capital of Vermont. It is certainly the quaintness capital of the state. Everyone who stops in Woodstock to wander around gets a special feeling about the place. In the 19th century, it was reported that the residents of Woodstock had no need to wish for heaven, since they had found it already. Today, that belief in special providence remains. One of Vermont's best-kept secrets is the eastern slope of the Greens, which contains some of its quietest and most beautiful locations. Here, the land tumbles down from the high Green Mountains toward the Connecticut River. Cutting through are a number of river valleys, creating the narrow bottomland of which the traditional Vermont farm is made. In this region, there are few lakes or other tourist attractions. That fact, coupled with tended farms, low mountains, and small towns, makes these eastern valleys one of the prettiest but least traveled parts of Vermont. Start your tour heading northeast out of Montpelier into an area of low mountains and sloping farms. If you start out early, you'll discover, in the fringe of the Northeast Kingdom, a landscape of morning fogs, where the fall colors almost glow in the mist. The hill at Peacham provides one of New England's most serene vistas. In fact, this hill and valley country is the best place to experience this most ephemeral of all autumn moments. From Peacham, head south through Groton and over to the first of Vermont's hidden valleys, the valley of the Waits River. Here are a couple of villages that are so classic that they're regularly used as photographic icons of the state. The first is the hill town of East Cornish, and further upriver is Vermont's poster village, Waits River. Climb out of the Waits River Valley and head west. When you drop over into the White River Valley, you head south on Route 110. This road will take you down into a charming, narrow, old farming valley. The first town you come to is Chelsea. It's emblematic of many of the towns in this part of the state. In each one, you might glimpse moments out of an earlier, perhaps mythical age, when we all lived in small communities and where the church steeple was always the center of attention. Another Vermont symbol is the covered bridge. Many visitors like searching for these relics, and for them, the side roads off Route 110 offer a mother lode of these artifacts. The bridge at Tunbridge is especially popular, primarily because it leads over to the Tunbridge Fairgrounds. And if you arrive a tad early for foliage in mid-September, be sure to take in the Tunbridge World's Fair, one of New England's classic country fairs. East from Tunbridge, the road leads over Justin Smith, a sometimes scenic highway. The park at the top is well worth the climb. From there, you'll discover the beautiful perspective it provides of this whole valley region. Continuing east, drop down into the village of Stafford. Stafford's church is one of Vermont's finest examples of classical colonial architecture. From South Stafford, the best route wanders west toward Sharon and Pomfret. This will take you through rambling low mountain country with a mixture of old farms and expatriate New Yorkers. This landscape rolls down to the Connecticut River, but the road leads west and south into Woodstock. Route 4 through Woodstock provides the dividing line between the central and southern parts of the state, and is a good starting point for our last tour. Southern Vermont is a bit of a land apart. Perhaps because it is more accessible to New York and Boston, this region has a long-standing history of resort culture and a lot of towns that make their living off of the weekend residents. It's also a region of gentle beauties and restrained sensibilities. This tour starts from Woodstock with a short ride west to Plymouth, actually Plymouth Union. Look for the signs to the Coolidge birthplace. Here, the state has lovingly preserved a turn-of-the-century Vermont village that contains the homestead of President Calvin Coolidge. Known as Silent Cal, Coolidge serenely presided over the laissez-faire American government of the Roaring Twenties. Besides the foliage, this is a great place to stop and get a feel for the Vermont of the legendary Republican Reserve. From Plymouth Union, wander Route 100 to the town of Weston. This distinctive village is another carefully preserved site. The ladies of Weston maintain a special foundation whose sole purpose is to tend to the Weston Green and ensure that the facades around the green remain frozen in golden memory. Next, follow the back road south and east to the town of Grafton. The town is owned by a foundation that maintains it as a living museum. For those in love with Americana, this region is full of images out of a simpler time. In fact, you might get the impression that the whole place is almost being preserved as a theme park for the historically minded traveler. From Grafton, follow the back roads south and west, and wander through the southern wilderness of the Green Mountain National Forest. Here, look for intimate details of fall that offer a quieter experience. As you come down into the southwestern region, the landscape opens out into the broad valley of Vermont. The Forest Service Road ends in Arlington. From here, head a little west to the village of West Arlington, where you can find one of those church and covered bridge scenes that define our image of Vermont. Now drive a little north up Route 7 and look for Manchester Village, which tends to look more formal than rustic with its grand resort hotel, the Equinox, and a number of stately homes. The most famous of these summer homes is Hildene, the diminutive country retreat of Abraham Lincoln's son, Robert. Down Route 7 a ways is southern Vermont's urban center, Bennington. Here, visit Old Bennington. There you'll find the Bennington Battle Monument, marking a Revolutionary War battle that was actually fought in nearby New York State. Down the street from the monument is the gracious old Congregational Church, with a graveyard in which you can find the grave of the poet Robert Frost. From Bennington, head east on Old Route 9, dubbed the Molly Stark Trail in honor of a Revolutionary War heroine. This takes you up and over the southern spine of the Green Mountains. At the top of the road, look for the view at the Hogback Ski Area. On a clear day, you can see the mountains as they tumble down to become the Berkshires in Massachusetts and the foothills in New York State. This is a great spot to get a final sense of the panorama of the Vermont fall before you join the traffic and wind your way down to Brattleboro in the end of this tour. Soon, the final act of the season will begin. The once bursting branches will shed their mantles and present bare bones to the sky. Slowly, the season withers, and the snows of winter will soon replace the gathering carpet of leaves. But in those brief minutes that contain one of the golden afternoons, when the lush New England summer is presenting its final gift of the year, we can escape the inevitability of winter. It's those times that we can be thankful for this harvest of colors and stop for a moment to treasure the lustrous beauty of the Vermont autumn.